Hello, and welcome to Cutting Through. I'm Mitchell Plitnick. Here to talk today about kind of continuing on a theme I've started on recently about potential alliances with between Palestine solidarity activism and right-wing figures. There's, of course, um, a growing sense. I wouldn't call it a movement by any means, but a growing sense among right-wingers, some who are kind of bolting a bit from the MAGA world, others who are just relying on basic isolationism, to oppose the United States policy towards Israel and Palestine. And in fact, one of the things that they're doing is they're adopting quite a bit of the language of Palestine solidarity movements. And I think there's two things about this. I mean, I think on the one hand, I think people who are actually part of liberation movements, we need to be thoughtful, mindful about who we're working with and why they're doing what they're doing. It matters. Um, it matters, in fact, a great deal because this is a movement of principle. The strength of this movement is principle. It's not politics. It's not power. It's principle. And so if we're sacrificing principle, we have a big problem. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't work with people that we have differences with. I am absolutely supportive of working with people with whom we have severe differences. But there's a difference between working with people and being their allies. Those are two different things. Getting very close with them. These are different things. And these things matter. So, just as an example, I mean, many years ago, when the conservative movement looked frankly, very different than it did now, I was among those who urged Palestine solidarity activists to work with Republicans, to work with people who were quite conservative, but were much closer to us um, in supporting Palestinian rights than many Democrats and liberals were. So, this is going back to the 1990s and the early 2000s, when there was a strong portion of the Republican movement that believed in realist politics, that saw big problems with the way we dealt with Israel and with the special relationship. They were not motivated by hostility to Jews or hostility even to Israel. They were motivated by what they saw as sensible foreign policy. And I thought we should work with them. I generally did not find much of an audience for that. Now we have a different phenomenon because those people by no means were adopting the same kind of rhetoric uh, and making the same case as Palestine solidarity activism. Today, we do have some of that starting to be visible on the right, and I actually, think that at least some of it is quite cynical, and they're adopting these approaches and this language for questionable purposes. Nonetheless, you can't really know what's in a person's heart. And I'm all for working with people, but I am not for making them allies. And there's a difference there. And I'm going to get into that. So this comes up for me this week because of two incidents. One is the UN Special Rapporteur for the Palestinian occupied territories, that would be Francesca Albanese. She went on Tucker Carlson's show and did a lengthy interview with him. And some people have criticized her for that. I do not criticize her for that. I think that was absolutely the right thing to do. Where I think we saw an example of the wrong thing to do was a visit that was publicized on social media by the leader of Code Pink, Medea Benjamin, which I'm given to understand was not done as part of Code Pink, but unfortunately Medea was wearing her Code Pink t-shirt and blasting that all over. So, the reality is whether Code Pink likes it or not, she was representing them. And she went and visited Marjorie Taylor Greene to praise her for her work for peace. And I got a big problem with that. Okay. Because that's not that's not working together. That's trying to make someone an ally and also raising them up. So these are two different things that happen. And I want to explore the distinctions here and why one I think is a good idea and the other one is not. So, starting with Francesca Albanese. So she went on Tucker Carlson, and I wouldn't say it was a flawless performance, and there were certain problematic aspects to it, but um, her job is to be a rapporteur. Her job is to tell people what is going on in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip. A job that is very difficult for her because she is not allowed to go to the West Bank or the Gaza Strip. And in fact, these days, she's hardly allowed to leave her home because of U.S. sanctions specifically on her. It is a monstrous thing. She's spent a good deal of time talking to Tucker Carlson about this, and I think that sort of story, her um her being so isolated and really impacted. She can't travel, she can't have a bank account, she can't, her credit, she has no credit, et cetera, et cetera. Just living day-to-day life has been made impossible for her because of U.S. sanctions. And that, I think, is something that speaks to a lot of Tucker Carlson's audience, is like, wait a minute, all she did, as Carlson repeatedly pointed out in their interview, uh, all she did was report on what she saw. And maybe the U.S. didn't like it, but she didn't, engage in, any acts of violence or anything like that. And yet she's facing these penalties. And I think that does resonate with Tucker Carlson's audience. And I think that's important for them to hear, that this is what's going on. Now, are some of those people, maybe many of those people, going to take her words and use them to fuel anti-Semitism? Probably so, yeah. But Tucker Carlson's audience is big enough that just through sheer numbers, it's also going to reach some people who really need to be educated on what's going on and are going to do something positive with that information, or are simply going to be better informed going forward. That's her job. Her job is not to speak to the left. It's also not to be a left-wing or progressive activist. Her job is to report on what's going on in the West Bank and Gaza, and to talk about, that, to raise that issue as an issue for international law, and say that these things are illegal and need to be addressed, and to promote legal action to address them. So she's doing her job. And I think that is something that's really important and very appropriate for her to do, including, talking to conservative, possibly MAGA, possibly isolationist, whatever, people who need to understand better what's going on. And, frankly, the fact that most of the places that Francesca would have spoken before this, um, most of her exposure has been among progressive and Palestine solidarity networks, or Arab networks, Al Jazeera and whatever. And these people are not going to hear that. They're not plugged into those sources. So yeah, that's important. By contrast, what Medea did, and let me make it clear, I think Medea Benjamin is wonderful. I love her. She does fantastic work. In this case, I think her political judgment is way, way off. It's not the first time I've thought that about things that she's done. Um, and in no way do I think that on the whole she is not doing really great work. But this was, in my view, a very big mistake, because what Medea did was to uplift Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I'm going to get into why that's such a bad idea in a bit. But um, you know, the the importance of doing that in the first place is kind of iffy, since Greene is about to leave Congress. And we don't know what she plans to do. I'm sure she's not going to disappear completely from the scene. I think she's been doing quite a bit to build herself up to something. We're not sure yet what. But I'm pretty sure she is going to be trying to lead a wing of the conservative movement that will be distinct from MAGA, and but will also have a lot of the same ideology and a lot of the same policies. So, we'll see where she's going. But she's clearly trying to revise her brand as an isolationist, which, when it came to Israel, she certainly has not always been. But let's remember who it is that we're dealing with. Literally the same day that Medea visited Greene and took these pictures and told her what a wonderful person she is for peace and etc. Marjorie Taylor Greene um, announced that Steve Scalise was had agreed to bring her legislation to the floor as one of the last acts she will do in Congress. Um, a bill that she calls the Protect Children's Innocence Act. That this would be brought to the floor this coming week. This bill would make it a Class C felony. This is what she says about it. This is how she describes it. It would make it a Class C felony to trans a child under 18. Every Republican campaign to protect kids from the trans agenda. So not only is Marjorie Taylor Greene peddling hate, um, as she's going out the door of Congress. I mean, the last thing she wants to do is make sure she gets something that's really hateful in there, but not only hateful, something that would do unbelievable harm. I mean, she said it would make it a Class C felony. That means doctors and parents who seek gender affirming care for their children and patients can go to jail under federal law. That's insane. The level of hate you have to have for trans people to do that is absolutely nuts. And let us make it clear, this is not this bill would not illegalize just surgery, gender changing surgery. This is all gender affirming care. This is anything. This is hormone treatments. These are things that treat depression, things that So both for emotional and physical well-being of trans kids, all of it would be a felony. That's who Marjorie Taylor Greene is. This is who she is. She makes no bones about this. And let's also be clear who Marjorie Taylor Greene has always been. She has a terrible record. She has a terrible record of racism. She has a terrible record of anti-Semitism, of Islamophobia, of fomenting the worst kinds of hate. That's who she is, and she hasn't taken any of this back. Let's not forget. I mean, some of the things that she did. She initiated a censure resolution. She brought a censure resolution against Rashida Tlaib. Her resolution was not the one that eventually did pass, with, by the way, shamefully significant Democratic support. Just because Rashida was talking about what was happening in Gaza and has used language like river to the sea. Oh my God, river to the sea. A very common phrase among Israelis, but let's not get into that issue right now. Her resolution accused Rashida Tlaib of anti-Semitic this is a quote, anti-Semitic activity, sympathizing with terrorist organizations, and leading an insurrection at the United States Capitol complex. This refers actually to a demonstration that was held in the Capitol building led by Jewish groups, such as Jewish Voice for Peace. So that was a nice little bit of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. Even when she, does things that Palestine solidarity activists or I myself would think are good things to do, she's doing them for terrible reasons. She the hateful and horrible anti-Semitic and really badly named Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which would have basically criminalized all criticism of Israel. She voted against it, which is great vote against it. But she didn't vote against it because it criminalized criticism of Israel. No. She voted against it because because one of the things it would have done was made the federal, it would have been a congressional statement that according to the federal government, it is anti-Semitic to say things like the Jews killed Christ, to spread things that foment violence and hatred against Jews. That's what she wanted, the freedom to be able to be anti-Semitic. That's why she voted against that bill. She said so. This wasn't a secret. I'm not reading into this. This is what she said. There's a reason. Marjorie Taylor Greene was, for years, quite pro-Israel. She started during the Gaza war to turn a bit. She did vote against supplemental aid to Israel based on her isolationism and American firstism, and that's fine. I mean, that's her politics, and those are conservative reasons and valid ones. But she was a reliable pro-Israel, pro-Trump vote in Congress for most of her time there up until that point. And what started turning her, and what really made the difference this year when she really broke with her party and with frankly with many Democrats do, in doing things like calling what happened as a genocide, which is of course accurate. Why did she do that? Well, she did that because Trump refused to back her Senate run. So she broke with him. That's what caused all of this. This isn't about Palestinian rights. She couldn't give a damn about Palestinian rights. It's not who she is. This is the same woman who talked about the one of the greatest tragedies in California history, the Camp Fire, and speculated that it was started by Jewish lasers from space. This is a woman who, and I'm quoting here, who said it's not irrational to fear Islamic terrorism or a religion that states its goal is world domination and the death of infidels. Another quote. She called a bill that Ilhan Omar had brought uh, to just to recognize and oppose Islamophobia. She called it Ilhan Omar's latest effort to force the entire world to submit to Islam. I mean, this is classic Islamophobia. This is nothing original. It's the basic bigotry that so many of us fight against all the time, and certainly that Muslims face all the time in the United States. I mean, she claimed that you know the shooting in Las Vegas in 2017, the rally at Charlottesville, where the white nationalists were chanting "Jews will not replace us," the Christchurch mosque attacks. She said that these were false flag operations meant to promote gun control. She harassed a survivor of the Parkland school shooting, David Hogg, and in Congress, or as he was walking to Congress, and filmed it and promoted it. Was very proud to be um, harassing this already very traumatized young man. She said that Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar should be disqualified from Congress because they were sworn in on a Quran, which of course makes no sense because if they're Muslim, you want them to swear on a Quran, not on a Bible. You'd want them to swear on their own holy book, yeah? She compared mass mandates to Jewish persecution in Nazi Germany. I mean, there's so many. I could go on and on and on. And the point is not that I want to hold these things against her for all of her life. The point is not that I can't conceive that she might change, but she hasn't retracted any of these things. She hasn't gone back and said, well, that was wrong. And, well, that just didn't make she kind of backtracked on the Jewish space lasers thing when I think because it became such a joke. But basically, she hasn't gone back on any of her hate. This is opportunism of the worst kind. And again, to work with her on a given issue, let's say she was staying in Congress and you're trying to get votes on a bill and fine, work with her, fine. Work with her. For so if you get her vote, even if it's for a cynical reason, fine. It's still a vote, that you want to get and a vote you wouldn't normally expect to get. So great. Get it. But to do what Medea did and raise up Marjorie Taylor Greene as a fighter for peace, as a hero, as somebody we should admire, hell no. Hell no. That is crazy and it's offensive. And it hurts my heart to have to say this, but it hurts my heart even more to know that on the very same day that this was happening, Marjorie Taylor Greene was trying to pass legislation to imprison the doctors and parents of trans kids for trying to take care of these children and give them the health care that they need. How, it's not about saying you have to be great on every issue. I don't believe that. Okay, I understand most people, we're going to have some profound disagreements with people. Hey, that's fine. But when you're talking about someone who promotes hate to the extent that Marjorie Taylor Greene has done and continues to do, again, work with her when it's necessary. That's fine. There is no reason to raise this woman up. There is no reason to treat her as some crusader for peace. She is not that. She's a crusader for hate. Her desire for peace is simply isolationism. Okay, it's simply about wanting an America that sits back in its wealth after it, while it exploits the rest of the world and lets poor people that we create kill each other as much as possible. That's Marjorie Taylor Greene's foreign policy in a nutshell. That is not something we should be raising up. As peace activists, that is not something we should be raising up. Again, work with her, fine. I have no problem working with her or anyone else. You get the votes. Politics is a dirty game. It's a cynical game. Okay. Work with anyone you have to work with, but there is no reason to raise them up as heroes like this. And that is very different from what Francesca Albanese did by going on Tucker Carlson's show. She went on there to inform, and that is absolutely right. Okay. So again, people came back at me when I did the video a few weeks back about Candace Owens. Candace Owens is an out-and-out anti-Semite and makes no bones about it. And it's not because of what she says about Israel. Okay, as I showed in that video, which I will link to in the in the description on this video, she didn't hide it. She doesn't, she has said things that clearly have absolutely nothing to do with Israel or Zionism and are clearly hateful to Jews. Okay, there really isn't any two ways about this. These are not people we need. Sorry, it's not. Again, you want to work with these people, you want to have on a specific task, fine. But they are not heroes. They are not positive models. They are people who come to even the support for Palestinians. They are coming to it from a place of hate, and ultimately, that undermines this movement. Because, as I started at the beginning, this movement does not have political power. It doesn't have economic power. Okay, it doesn't have even those arguments. What it has is a moral stance, an ethical stance. It has the passion of the Palestinian people for their homeland and for their freedom. But for those of us who are not Palestinian, we do this because it is right. It is just. It is the focal point in many ways of an unjust world that if we can fix this, we can fix anything. And given the amount of power we're up against, we cannot compromise on the principles. We can work with anyone, and I think we should. Well, maybe not anyone, but on specific tasks, we can work with people we have profound disagreements with. But let's not raise up hateful people just because they're saying the right things for the moment about Israel-Palestine. Okay, that goes for Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it goes for Tucker Carlson, both of whom have a long history of hateful activities, hateful comments, hateful views that they have used their platforms to spread and to activate, and they've used their influence to turn them into policy. And they haven't given any indication that they've changed their minds about these things. They've only given an indication that they've changed their mind about Donald Trump. So let's be really clear. Let's be very careful, because we can't afford, we don't have the resources to make up for the mistakes that the other side does. So I leave it there. Happy to hear your comments and feedback. And if you can support this channel, there's a link in the description as to how you can do that. And if you can also just like, share, and subscribe, that helps as well. So do what you can, and all of it is appreciated. And I will be talking to you soon.